Hey, howdy. Hello, fellow readers. I'm assuming if you're watching this that you're also participating in the PewDiePie book club that he's been putting on. If so, congratulations if you made it through month 1, if you got your book. If you didn't get your book and you're still working on it, I won't tell him. I won't tell him. But if you managed to read it and you're here, then I'd love to share my thoughts with you because I had a good time with it, actually. This is the version that I have. The Tao Te Ching by Stephen Michael. This one right here. And it's an older version. My lovely wife, picked it up from the library for me. Support your local libraries. And it's an older one. It was published in '88, and I really enjoyed it. It was short, considering other things. Like, this is a really easy read, and I understand why he started with this. Now, I didn't read any of the musings in the back or any of the notes that were made. I read it page 1 to page 81. And I read it in a couple sittings because I'm a little slow. But every page had a little kernel of wisdom that I felt was relevant, and I felt like I could take something away from. I didn't write a ton down, but I did try and take notes. For the first time reading a book, I actually tried to take notes because I went into it knowing that I would record this video, and I wanted to give my honest opinions. Can you stop that? All right, hold on. I gotta go rescue I gotta get my cat out of the closet. You're being banished. You are being banished. Get out. Sorry about that. So the book feels like it's very sectioned. Not sectioned, but it has two main focuses for the audience. The first focus is the self, it's the person. The master, I think, is what they refer to this person over and over again as the person who follows the way. And that is very, it's very self-reflective. It talks about, like, do by not doing, this concept of not doing, where you practice something so much that it just becomes instinctual. It isn't a matter of consciously doing it. You're never thinking about what you're doing. You just naturally do the right thing or the good thing or whatever, because there really isn't any good or bad defined in the Tao. It's sort of like this is of the way, and this is not of the way. So let me go to something earlier that I wrote down. Let me see here. This is kind of the origin, but the world is formed from the void, like utensils from a block of wood. The master knows the utensils, yet keeps to the block. Thus, she can use all things. I think that's awesome. First of all, you work with the clay, even though you have a bowl and a cup, they all come from the clay. But because the master knows the shape of a cup and knows the shape of a bowl, she can extract that from the clay, regardless of where she is. So she prefers to stick with the raw materials. I'm just rephrasing the metaphor in my own, like, the way my brain thinks about it, because I don't think of carving. I think of, like, molding or modeling or whatever. Taking raw material, sticking with base elements, moving from base elements to actual function. That's like a very surface level way of viewing this. But you could also view it through, like, a more philosophical lie, which I think is what is intended here, which is, like, rely on your base instincts. Don't necessarily move towards, the written path always. Rely on yourself a little bit more, and through that extract your required meaning depending on the situation. Because If you only have access to a bowl, it makes a cup, but it makes a very poor cup. And if you had the clay, then you could just make a cup. So much more like situational. And the book is all kinds of full of this kind of stuff. Where I was when I was reading this was very much like troubled. Troubled is the right word. I see the world right now, in January, with everything that's going on, and in my country, in the U.S., and in the world, in Germany, in France, in Europe, in Asia, I see trouble. I see problems and people failing to meet the expectations of their people, and people standing up and promising things that they know they can't deliver on, and people having to buy into it because what is the other option? The way things have been for the past 5-6 years, it's heartbreaking because I want to see people succeed. And that was the mind palace, the mind space I was in reading the book for the first time. Not that I've read it twice, but I might read it again this year, actually, not for my free book, just on my own time. I wrote down some things in here about like work ethic, or like making things, because I want to build things. I want to create something. I don't want to just not create something, but I find it very hard to find the motivation to. And there's a lot of pride. There's a lot of pride in me that's very problematic. But this is a really good quote that says, like, let your working remain a mystery. Just show people the results. I think it's very, very good. It feels like, I wrote here, it feels this was written just for me. It speaks directly to my biggest issue, talking about doing something before doing it. Yep, that sounds about right. And then page 38, just a couple pages later, ritual is the husk of true faith, the beginning of chaos. Is like, man. And then like, if you flash back to what I was just talking about from page 18, ritual is the husk of true faith, the beginning of chaos. When the country falls into chaos, patriotism is born. Man, I just between 4 lines, I couldn't describe to you, like, it puts into words something that no one has talked about in my earshot. Christianity, the overarching religion of the West in general, but of the United States, to be more specific, how that just became sort of like paying lip service to it, and then just relying on the ritual of going to church and talking with friends afterwards and hearing words but not really internalizing them. Not for everybody, obviously, but on a grand scale, and then where that led in our country, I think is truly, truly fascinating. Yeah, I don't know. It's so interesting reading my notes, because early on I would write down a note. I'd write down a couple lines and then a few thoughts about it. And I would get, I'd get a couple lines through, and then like my later readings, like near the end, I'm just writing down like whole blocks of text. And it's just because so much of it was really, really interesting to me. Now, I want to mention that I don't necessarily agree with everything that he says, and the overall stance of taking action by not really taking action, I think is like a pacifist, essentially. Specifically, that I just don't necessarily agree with. Like in chapter 60, it reads, "Give evil nothing to oppose, and it will disappear by itself." I just don't agree. I think evil is something that lives within every human being, and we need to actively pursue against it. We need to actively work against our natural instincts, because a lot of times our natural instincts lead us to a form of, I don't know, our natural instincts lead us to evil, with our consent or without it. We just do, and we always have. But I don't think it's been proven that evil, left alone, left unopposed, will do anything but prosper. And it must be fought at some level. It must be resisted. Now, what that looks like depends on the person. I think you can absolutely fight evil with compassion and with love. It's totally doable and very effective, because even though it doesn't necessarily affect the person that you are fighting against, it will, the people that are watching you, because nothing is done alone, the people that watch you, that has an effect. And I think that's a much, even though I disagree with what they're writing, I think it causes me to think about other things. It causes me to wonder why I believe certain things, and I continue on down the road. And because it's so bite-sized, because every chapter is 4 paragraphs at the longest, it reads like poetry. It reads so smooth and so quick. And you can just sit down, read a couple chapters, and really mull over it. So I'm not going to go too far deeper into everything else that I wrote down in here. The second thing that I was going to talk about just briefly was the idea of how you translate the way that how the Tao, a person who follows the Tao, the master, how they handle being in leadership, because leadership is such a confrontational position, how it is it's so important. How should a leader look if they are following the Tao? And I'll tell you what, there's not a lot of people doing it like they should be doing it, if the Tao is to be believed. So yeah, I think it's a truly miraculous book. I think it's amazing. Like a solid 9.5, 10 out of 10. It's so easy to read. There's so much depth to it. It's very easy to read into it. It's very easy to come to your own conclusions. I think it somewhat encourages that. There is a section in here where it's like a man who learns of the Tao and is skeptical of it. Like there's something in there about that. It's like someone who doesn't follow the Tao at all is like evil. Only a true master follows hears of the Tao and follows it implicitly. I mean, it works, I suppose, as a way of causing people to generate, causing people to follow it. But I personally think that it's not. I don't believe the way is intrinsically built into the fabric of the universe the way that this book presents it. I think it's a very good philosophy, a very good starting point into self-discovery, if that's where you're going, which is where I think we're going, considering the next book. But that's for that. Anyway, so that was the Tao. Now, you can totally, if you're watching this because you're part of the book club, the PewDiePie book club, then go right ahead, because... but I did want to mention one other thing that I read this month. I started it in February, but I finished it this month. I don't have too much to say because it is just like the 5th book in the Stormlight series. But yeah, I read it. I read Winds and Truth, and I liked it a lot. Now, people don't like this book as much as they liked his other books, and I think that's totally fair. I don't think middle books in series are necessarily the best. They're not where you're kind of in the middle of a flow. But I don't read very much. So maybe some real book talk bookers, some real readers will tell me what fantasy series I'm missing consistent output from in the comment, and that'd be great because I'm done with this book, and the next book's not coming out for a while, so I'm kind of just waiting. You know what I'm saying? Well, hey, if you enjoyed this book review, give me a subscribe because, believe me, I will be reviewing every book that comes out this year, or not every book that comes out. I will be reviewing each of the books in PewDiePie's recommendations. So if you're reading along, then why don't we read along together? Let me want to know what you think. I'll be trying to participate places. So yeah, it'd be great to hear from you. And if you happen to be free on Tuesday nights for whatever reason, I've started streaming over there. So come on over and check it out. Look at this funny clip that I've curated that is funny.
That is so not true. Fucking find your father, bro. Do some male bonding or something with a group of your friends. Go fucking burn a church or something. Like, this should not be your favorite. This should not be your favorite childhood memory.
Yeah, I'll be streaming every Tuesday night. Reacting to reels my friend sends me, talking about things, playing video games, all the good things. So, yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one, and I'll see you later. Bye.